Good morning, DWF. Technically, it's night time, it's like 3:44 a.m., but I don't like any of the other recordings that are recorded, so I'm going to try with a little more energy this time. If you're not aware, DWF recently released this tweet saying that they apologize for the incident at the training center. Bryan Maverick has been suspended until further notice now. If you can't tell what's going on, if you're blind, don't worry, I have you. Bryan walked into the gym, DWF's official gym, and he posted a bunch of models, anti-BLM, anti-LGBT. He had a black man burnt on the cross. Now, whether or not you agree that Bryan should or should not be banned, that's none of my concern. What I'm going to reveal to you is context that hasn't apparently been made knowledgeable to the rest of the community. A lot of guys who are just getting into the situation who aren't coming to DWF. I want to make light of the fact that this is not very new at all. In fact, this has happened multiple times before, but only now is it significant because it's the first time that we've actually done something about it. Now, for a little historical context, I won't go that far into it. After the clown era, there was a cultural shift. There was also a goal shift, and that's going to be very important. I'm going to get into that a little more just a little later. Hold on for now. But all you need to know is Bryan was promptly banned after a lot of pressure was given to the higher execs after what he did at the gym with his admin. And as a result of this, I have realized that this has become an issue where we, as a federation, we, DWF, we, the creative team, we, the higher execs, Mob and Hoxton, are so focused on the goal of keeping our member count so high up that we will do anything and everything to maintain that. Even throwing our own fans under the bus, even pretending to care for causes that we don't. Okay? We have been operating on a pretty big lie, and I think it's about high time that everyone is made aware of this. A lot of people are wondering, how are there a bunch of people who could support the liberation of a homophobe or of a racist? A lot of people aren't convinced by the other arguments. I don't blame them. They aren't really arguments. Him being mixed, him being bisexual, doesn't justify him burning down a gay flag or lynching a black guy or, the anti-BLM joke. And what you'll find is a lot of people in that VC feel the same way, okay? They didn't find it particularly funny. They know it doesn't justify what he did. But the major point that they do have, and it's a good point, it's that DWF in the past has let a lot more irreprehensible shit fly. And not even like within the past 2 years, like within 2020, within the last 4 months, it's been a prevalent issue. And whether or not it's an issue, again, I'm not going to change your mind on that. But it should be understood that DWF is a very lenient culture. It tolerates a lot. The consequences that come from speaking your mind in DWF, typically they are very low, but recently it feels like that isn't the case, and that seems like a sign for the future, but that may also not be the case. Again, I'm gonna try to elaborate as best as I can. So here's a tweet from Rare Levels. I retweeted it. Reiterates what I said. Basically, the general idea behind this Free Bryan movement is they know Bryan did something fucked up, but people have done way worse. They have done very similar things, and it's pretty frequent, and they don't get punished. And I want to make it a point that the only reason Bryan got punished was because it was publicized. The images, they were posted on the DWF Twitter for everyone within the Fed, not only just within the Fed, but outside the Fed to come and see it. And, from an outsider's perspective, they're horrible. That's terrible. Why would people post that? But in DWF, it's kind of accepted. It has been accepted, and that's because there's zero standard whatsoever on this kind of thing. Okay, so many people have gotten away with so much, and there's like no real accountability for these kinds of things. You have to understand that these people have been around forever. They have seen a lot of shit, and it kind of comes off pretty convenient. Like, oh, Bryan's getting banned, but for why? People do this all the time. Why is it just now that Bryan is? Is he on Hawks on the bad side? We'll see. And I'm going to start providing examples as to all these people who have done irreprehensible shit. The first few, they're not nearly as extreme, exaggerated, or terrible. But I don't know if you have like a trigger warning kind of thing. I will tell you beforehand. There's instances of racism, instances of extreme racism, and federal crimes which have been committed. So if that kind of thing upsets you, maybe click off this video. Maybe never come to DWF either, because it's kind of a shithole given our current predicament. But let's talk about axillaries. Mr. Hustle, Loyalty, and Racism. He was once a champion, okay, DWF Overdrive champion. This guy had a DWF Mania match. This guy represented the Fed. Oh, and guess what? He still represents the Fed. What's his big issue? In another Fed, he whispered in someone's whispers the N-word with the hard R, and they proceeded to call them a slave shortly afterwards. There is no accountability here, okay? Common sense would suggest that if Bryan Maverick is a racist and gets banned for being a racist, Axelarities is a racist who should be banned for being a racist. No, instead, he's still a main roster member. He's still getting matches, okay? If he had an okay performance this month, he could probably get booked for a title. Yes, Mr. Hustle, Loyalty, Racism will preach what he says. All the while, DWF will suck him off while they do it. It's pretty impressive. Let's talk about Emmanuel. Okay, Emmanuel I don't think is nearly as severe as Axelarities, but it should go without saying they're like 13 years old. They call someone the N-word with the hard R, and they proceed to call them a racist 2 times. Someone called him out on his bullshit. He one time made fun of George Floyd. That's a sensitive topic. And he says, I don't really care if I'm racist. To be fair, just back off of me and suck my dick. So for someone who, people say, oh, he's been very apologetic. He's apologized 20 times. He wishes that he can just move past. And while, I can understand that pain, Bryan Maverick too apologized for what he did, and there is no redemption for him. Why should there be redemption for Emmanuel? And part of the problem here is that it's tolerated, it's accepted, just to keep the member count consistent. Okay, here's one of the main roster guys saying, "Please ban Axel. What are you doing? Why is Axel still here?" And the CEO, Chief Executive Officer, Hawkson's right-hand man himself says, "If I ban Axel and Emmanuel for what they did, then most of you would be banned. You have all said something fucked up before." Now, he's not wrong, but the difference is you either go all in, you ban everyone, or you don't ban anyone at all. Okay? For someone who's been preaching for Bryan's ban, and who keeps calling people terrible for being a racist or a homophobe, for just associating with Bryan, he seemed awfully forgiving of Emmanuel and Axelarities. I don't know, I see a lot of inconsistency here. You're starting to see the narrative that I'm building up, but it's not a narrative, this is fact. This has been happening for a while now. This is the official match card, DWF Mania. He fought Engie and he lost. Engie's a pretty cool guy, but it stands without saying that Mr. Hustle, Loyalty, Racism was a poster boy at one point. Corey Casada, inarguably the most racist man I've ever met. And so, as I said before with Axelarities, common sense would say a racist gets banned So another racist should also get banned, and Corey Casada has been racist. He should be banned if Brian Maverick is racist, and he is banned for being racist. Look at the amount of times he said the N-word with the hard R. 232 times alone, back to back, spammed throughout the channels. Nothing done whatsoever. And if you're wondering as to what's happening in the center, that is Mob, the CEO, adding Corey Casada to Creative Chat as a replacement for Brian Maverick. I don't know what goes on in someone's cognitive function where they decide, hey, you know what would be great? Let's get rid of this racist guy and let's replace him with an even more racist guy. And for context on that middle image, I made that point to Mob, like, okay, Corey has done some racist shit. Okay, he walked into the gym, he spelled out the N-word with a hard R, he had 5 people dressed as gorillas stand out front, screenshotted it, sent it through the cord, spread it around, and people laughed at it. Okay? Mob's reaction after Corey admits to it? I don't know. He's still there and creative. Okay? Zane Styles. If you don't know what's up with this guy, then oh boy, you're in for a doozy. Zane Styles, people call him a pedophile. I don't know if you can count as a pedophile if you two are also 15, but I'll tell you something. Basic law. Okay? US federal law states that if you post pornography of yourself and you are under the age of 18, it is child pornography still. It'll still count as child pornography. And if you send that to another minor, it counts as distribution of child pornography. So even if Zane now is the same age as this girl, he has distributed child pornography. He has committed a federal offense. He got demonized by this by the rest of the community. In fact, you will see on the left side of the screen a list of federations who have grievance with Zane. One of them, DWF, Mob and Hoxton, apparently signed on to this agreement saying, we do not tolerate Zane anymore. Okay? And on the right side, you will see, we have decided to remove Eli Storm from the DWF 2020 Hall of Fame due to the incident that happened at the gym on Sunday. Okay, so vile shit can get you removed from your Hall of Fame status. All of your accomplishments will be brushed away for the vile shit you do. I think that's a good precedent to set. Let's see how consistent DWF has been in maintaining that. Oh, look at that! Zane got inducted in the DWF class of 2020 Hall of Fame. Isn't that heartwarming? Oh, look at that! DWF Mania 2. Wow. Guess what? Zane is also one of the most celebrated United States champions in the DWF history. Hoxton will probably go on to suck his dick and say, hey, he was the best US champion, in fact. You know, kind of disappointing. Alright. I'll give a little bit of a pass on Hoxton's part. This was a little recently. It was before what Bryan did. So, I mean, I don't think he should be getting out of this one, but maybe I'll give it a little pass because it's the individual and not the company, right? We'll see about that. Okay, let's talk about Wide Spicy Fire Breath. And the reason I'm putting Wide after Zane, even though Wide isn't nearly as known as Zane, what he did isn't nearly as known outside of a select few within the community, but they did the same exact thing. And Wide distributed child pornography of someone else in a Discord, another Fed, RWW, Jaden Cole specifically, if I recall that correctly. Anyways, what he did was he took that image of someone else's dick and he posted it in the DWF court. And here is the tweet I made after Bryan got banned, and I said, remember that time we let White Spicy Fire Breath back into the Fed after posting child porno? Yeah, good times, but gay rights goat or something. A little tongue-on-cheek, but I mean, my point here is that if you're going to acquit someone of CP, I think it's kind of weird that you set your bar at racism and homophobia, but a federal crime, that I can forgive you for. It's kind of a weird precedent to set, don't you think? Wide explains himself to me. He says, I was unbanned because I didn't break the rules technically. I would have still been banned if I did know the person was under 18, but I didn't. So, blank face. Yes, genius. How did I not think of this? Yes, dude, it makes so much sense. You go into a Roblox Wrestling Discord based off of the site Roblox, a kid-friendly, advertised for kids website and platform with rules to safeguard kids who have a zero tolerance policy on this kind of thing. And you decide, hey, in this likely child-infested server, someone has posted their dick. I am pretty sure that in a server of children, it would make sense to assume that they are 18 for whatever reason. And now I'm going to distribute this picture of a dick to another server. I also find it fucking hilarious that he says he didn't break any of the rules technically. I don't recall a time when the rule set of the Dallas Wrestling Federation Discord valued more than the US federal law, which explicitly states that you can be thrown in prison for distributing child pornography. I don't know, I just find that kind of fucking funny. Oh, and more as to why I'm mentioning Wide after Zane. See, there's something unique about Wide, which really shows a lot. See, Wide has been banned from DWF for a while, but he wasn't banned for child pornography. No, he was banned for annoying the founder and threatening to exploit. Now, this is important because if you threaten to exploit, you directly affect how many people are in a server at any given time, how many people are willing to come back after you get exploited. It's a member count thing. DWF has one goal: maintain member count at all costs, no matter what. No matter what. This Fed will do anything, will brush off anything, if they can get away with it, just to maintain members. The reason they didn't with Bryan, because there was countless more who would damage the reputation of DWF if they didn't ban Bryan. A lot more who would leave if they didn't ban Bryan. But with Corey Casada, no, because they don't know about Corey Casada. They don't know about Wide. So there isn't some demand to have him removed. So they keep him. That's +1 member, okay? He says he's on parole right now. He can watch the show, but he can't participate. How long do you think it'll be before he is allowed to participate? Now, I think something's fucked is going on. Oh, here's that conversation, by the way. The month 03, I don't think there should be any reason to post child porn on the server. We had a discussion, almost unanimously agreed, he has to go. What happens afterwards? A month later, Dallas says it's time to remove Hodgson from the Fed. I'm sending Bryan to ban him. He's under orders. It's all good. Hodgson says, no. I think Wide will be banned from just the court. Just the court. I don't think he should be banned as a whole. He quits him of the child porno charge. And what does he have to say to guys like Wide Spicy Firebreath? That you are precious, and that you should spare each and every single one of them to maintain your member count. See, he doesn't care that people are grossly offended by what Zayn did or what Wide did. Those are fucking disgusting acts. They should not be tolerated in any capacity. But Hodgson thought it was okay, until it directly affected his member count when he threatened to exploit the shows. Then he had a problem. So, as we already just mentioned, Hodgson has done some pretty shady shit. He's tolerated a lot. And people are insistent on the fact that Mob and Hodgson are just these saintly beings, and the rest of the DWF roster are the ones who ruin everything. Yes, dude, the DWF roster, the guys with the most grievances over the past 4 months, if not the whole entire year of 2020. Yes, dude, they're the ones to blame. Hodgson and Mob are just trying to do a good job of hosting. How can they show sympathy to a guy? God, no. Guy like Bryan, who's just doing what everyone else has done without being punished? No, God forbid. Hodgson and Mob are the most saintly beings on this planet. Yes, dude, they have not done shady or disgusting shit at all. No, not at all. Good on them for banning Bryan. Yeah, good on them for acquitting Wide of child porno. Good on them for celebrating Zayn as a great human being, as one of the greatest to ever do it. Yes, dude, the worst roster ever. God, gotta feel bad for Oxen. Yes, dude. Alright, so here, I'll level with you more on kind of just why Hodgson doesn't give a shit whatsoever. It's all down to just, it's an ego thing. I think it really is just an ego thing. I don't know why it is, but we had a discussion about quote unquote toxicity. So there was an influx of guys that they weren't regulars to the Fed, and they got a free pass to title shots over some other guys, like TTB at that time. He had been in the Fed for 8 months. He'd been holding minor titles. He'd been working his way up to a major title. And a guy like Raheem, who had like 3 months of just like minor work, he got the mortal title shot over him. And so Hodgson's catering to these maybe 4 to 5 guys who just came into the Fed, and he's like, well, they think the Fed is toxic. And we countered with, well, you thought the Fed was toxic a few months back. We agreed with you. In fact, we had an entire rule referendum. And when we did that rule referendum, shortly after you said, actually, let's tear down the rule referendum so I can acquit White Spicy Fire Breath of his child porno case. And so we mentioned, okay, no, there are people who don't buy into this whatsoever. They have grievances, okay? They don't buy into this toxicity thing. Some of them are upset because other guys are getting free passes over them after all the hard work that they do. And Hodgson proceeds to say this about the guys who repeatedly come to his shows, who supported him through thick and thin, who have come time after time, who sat with him as the Fed had 20-member shows in the clown era. He has this to say for them. We all know that they're not very smart. Half the roster have the IQ of about 12. Now, does he want to compromise on this toxicity issue? Does he want to see anything done to change it? Does he want to make another rule referendum? No. He simply says, I'm ending this conversation. Because he doesn't like opposition. And funnily enough, guess where Mob stands on all of this? He says, okay, the Fed is toxic. Okay, fine. Let's say the Fed is toxic. And he says, changes are coming. Okay. And funnily enough, I didn't screen cap it because I didn't think it was necessary, but I did call him out on this. I said, no, they won't. Nothing will change. He said, yes, they will. And I was expecting something to change. Lo and behold, 2 months now, we're in August, Brian Maverick decides, hey, I don't have to worry about anything. Why don't I walk into the gym and post some anti-BLM and anti-LGBT stuff while I hang a black man and burn him on a cross? Do you think anything changed in between then? Did you think there was any incentive for Bryan not to do that? Is there anything that's going to hold him back? This came as a blindside to him, and that's only because we have to maintain the member count, okay? That is the only motivation DWF has. We do not give a shit about our fan base. No, everything is done for the member count. Purely for the member count. He does not care about these guys who like Bryan or Bryan fucking everything up. No, they don't care about those guys who feel impassionate about this. Okay, this isn't personal. Okay, it's been proven it's not personal because if it were a thing that we were against racism, if we were against homophobia, all those examples that I listed out, Axelarities, Emmanuel, Corey Casada, Zayn, Wide, they would be long gone. Long gone. their names would be erased from DWF history. It wouldn't even be a question. It would be accepted universally as that would be the standard, but that is not the standard because we accept a lot of bullshit if we can get away with it. I just find it horribly sad that we have come this low to the point where we are at each other's throats and that we are being played like jigsaw pieces to be fit wherever they feel like putting us. And not only that, but we give Hodgson all the fuel he needs. Because at the end of the day, all Hodgson needs is the member count. And if we simply accept it the way it is, whatever he does without protest, he has his way. Minutes after what he did to Bryan, after he banned Bryan, they originally said, okay, we're going to suspend Bryan. We're going to figure out what we're going to do together with him unanimously. We're going to congregate. And we're going to figure out what we should do with him, and we'll come with a decision. Minutes after receiving all that shit on Twitter from a bunch of guys who don't come to the Fed, they crumble under the pressure just so that they can keep the member count stable. What's just one loss to a bunch of guys who are outraged, okay? That's the way it is, and that's the way it was, and that's the way it will be if we don't change anything. Me personally, I would like to believe that we can start first. The Federation, these higher execs, Mob and Hodgson, they both need to admit that DWF has done shitty shit. We have tolerated a lot, some irreprehensible things, and we have brushed them under the rug and pretended they didn't exist, because that is truth, that is fact. We have done those things, but if we want to set a precedent forward, a progressive precedent that will actually benefit the Fed, then we need to acknowledge that we've been at a point where we are vile and we have been disgusting. Or else we're not going anywhere. No changes have been made the last time we say it. Just saying changes are coming, that's not doing anything, okay? You're not fixing any problems. You're just pretending to be more politically correct. You're not doing shit. Alright. In conclusion, I want to just, hit this with a little more of a nail in the coffin. It's probably unlikely Bryan will stay banned. Let's be real here. I've shown you a list of reasons why that's not the case. A lot of people just been pardoned for shit that's like irreprehensible. But related to Bryan specifically, when we had that conversation the moment he was banned, here was what Mr. Mobbert said. Mob Manlet Mansion, Boom Man himself, the CEO of DWF, the man who's going on a tirade, calling people who associate with Bryan terrible human beings, who are just as equally bad as Bryan, says, well, you understand that right now we can't ban him, because if we do, then we will get crucified. When everything calms down, then we will talk about it. Yes, we are not worried about how people actually feel, because we are open to the prospect of bringing Bryan back in the future. Just as of right now, we just don't want the blowback. That's pretty much what's going on here. That's what's been going on for a while. And a lot of people have been completely and entirely oblivious to it. It's so bad to the point that Hodgson can just push the pieces how he sees fit. He did it so well. He bans Bryan, okay? The people are content within seconds, like babies after you give them candy, right? So good, in fact, that he gave the pay-per-view Bound for Glory. It happened minutes after this situation, an 8 out of 10. And hey, if change really happened, then I don't think that the search results for this would yield near to 10,000. I don't know, man. I don't like being overly critical of this Fed, because I've been in this Fed for well over 4 years. I've established myself as a member of this federation. I've made friends in this federation, and I hate to see this all squandered. And I hate to see all this pointless controversy and all this contextless. So I'm going to give you this video, and I'm going to give you the facts as they are. We have done some irreprehensible shit to maintain our goal, because we don't want a repeat of the clown era, so we've gone borderline suicidal in the managing of our member count. And I'd be surprised if we don't just buck down, admit we did wrong, and that we're going to fix it in the future. Because every time we say, we're going to change things, we're going to fix things, toxicity is going to be at an all-time low, we lie straight to their faces. It's the biggest bullshit. We're just appeasing them momentarily until the next fuck-up happens, and then we have to scramble our asses to appease the people again, brush it under the rug, and eventually bring back whoever fucked up. Does these sound like the words of someone who wants to keep Bryan banned forever? Come on now, be real here. If DWF's history has shown anything, it's all a lie. It's been a lie for all of 2020, and these aren't new circumstances. They only appear new because we put it on Twitter for people who aren't in the Fed to see. Now that's the real kicker, because now we can mold the narrative however we feel and act based upon it. Everyone's blind, it's so unfortunate, but I have given a blueprint as to what we can fix. Admit we've done wrong, and then set the precedents for the future. Okay? We can't ban Bryan and then just leave all the other people who've committed terrible things to just be happy, keep winning belts, and be cherished as great members of our community. Okay? You either ban them all and you stick to your guns, or you say, okay, we're going to be very, very lenient, and I don't know, maybe you should unban Bryan if this is the case. I don't know. Just food for thought. For those who didn't know, now you know better. Now you know the truth, and now you know the circumstances surrounding this very shitty situation. And I hope things really do improve. I hope the changes that come actually come, and I hope we're not sitting here holding our hands with our dicks, jerking ourselves off 2 months from now. That's all from me.